I can't wait for you to see what I do with some of these junk pieces. They turned into some rustic farmhouse decor that's definitely a slam dunk. Hi there, my name is Sandra, and you're watching The Schwovin's Nest.
And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, what are you waiting for? Click that red button.
I picked this utensil up at a garage sale. I think it's meant for concrete or tile work. It's really beautiful with the rusty and crusty stuff, but that handle is plastic. So I'm going to give it a couple of coats of white chalk paint and make it look like wood. I've had this bottle of Folk Art Crackle Medium for at least 20 years, and I'm really excited to say that it hasn't dried up. It's still in the same shape as it was when I bought it. I'm going to give the bottom blade of this utensil a really nice thick coat and then set it aside to dry. I used my hair dryer to help speed up the drying process of the crackle medium. And now I'm going to be applying white chalk paint. Now, when you're applying the chalk paint on top of the crackle medium, it's really important not to go over your paint too often because that will disturb the crackle medium underneath. The thickness of the top coat will determine how big or small your crackle is. If you put a thick coat on, you'll get nice, big, thick cracks. And if you put a thinner coat on, they'll turn into smaller, thinner cracks. I'm going to end up getting a little bit of the mix of the two here. And on the bottom, you can see that it's already starting to go. The crackle starts fairly quickly using this type of crackle medium. To speed it up even more and to make even bigger cracks, I'm going to use my blow dryer to heat it up. And you can see that there's some wonderful cracks coming in here, and I think it's going to look absolutely amazing. Now that I've got my crackle done, I'm going to turn this white plastic handle into a wood look handle. And the way I'm doing this is taking a really rough brush. This brush has had so much paint on it, it's really going to give me a coarse look. And you can see here that I'm kind of getting some streaky lines. And that's going to make it look like wood grain. So I'm just going to keep applying the brown wax until I get the color and the texture that I want. I'm going to cut some strips out of some scrap fabric. I love this gray and white ticking stripe. It's my favorite. I'm also going to use some of this white flour sack towel, but I'm not going to use the drop cloth. Instead of cutting the flour sack cloth all the way through, I decided to tear it. It gives it a really nice rustic look. Earlier on in my YouTube days and in my decor days, I never really used bows on things, but they are really starting to grow on me, especially these messy bows. I really love the look of them, and with these longer pieces, you get more of a droopy effect, which is what I was looking for with this bow. I'm going to just lay all of these in different angles, use everything up, and then I'll just take a piece of flour sack cloth and just tie it up really tight. To bring in just a little bit more color or rusticness to this project, I'm going to take some of this twine and I'm wrapping it about 10 to 15 times around my finger. And then I'm going to just grab it together in the center, grab another piece of twine and tie it off really tight. And this is just going to create a really fun, messy bow look. It's going to have the loops like a regular bow, but I'm going to have a whole bunch of different loops, and this just makes it look so pretty. To assemble everything and get my final look, I'm going to use some hot glue to glue the messy bow right on top of the handle. Then I'm going to take my other little bow that I made with the twine and all of the little loops and glue that right on top. I added some bits of greenery and lavender, and I just love how this turned out. It's rustic, but it's shabby. It's gorgeous. For this project, I'm repurposing a couple of wood signs that I had made into decor. They didn't turn out as well as I thought they would, so I'm going to be taking everything apart. Then I'm going to take these outside to my sander and get rid of the painted finish on the front. I need a way to fill the hole on one of these, so I'm going to take some tape. I put some masking tape on the back of it, and I'm going to pop in this little bead. And once I get the bead in there, I'm going to add a whole bunch of hot glue, and that will hold the bead in place, and it'll also level out the hole a little bit, so I'll be able to add some wood filler and make it nice and smooth. I set that piece of wood aside so the wood filler and the hot glue could dry completely. And now I'm going to be using these little balls and attaching these to the second board. So what I'm creating is a double wood beaded riser. And these aren't actually beads. These are cedar balls that I picked up at my Dollarama store in the laundry section. And they're, of course, meant to keep your things nice and fresh, your clothing, blankets, things that you store away. But these were perfect. They're round, they don't have a hole in them, and they were immensely cheap. I think I got the whole package for like $2. So I grabbed a bunch of these when I saw them, and I haven't used them in a while. I've had them in my stash for probably over a year, and I thought this would be the perfect project to use them up. I'm going to just use hot glue to glue these two pieces of board together. I'll put a little dab on top of each of these cedar balls and then place the other board on top and just hold it together until the glue sets. I love using these little wood egg cups that I get at a store that's local. And I like to use them for riser feet because look at, they're just perfect. You could have them right side up like this, or you could do them upside down, which is the way I like to do them. I'm just kind of checking out here which way I like better. And I do like when the flat side is on the bottom, so meaning the wider part is at the top of the riser. I'm just going to use hot glue to put these on, and if you're interested in getting some of these, I do have them available on my Etsy shop. The link to my Etsy shop is down in the description box, and I've got a bunch of these in stock, so they're ready to ship out should you like to place an order. This wood is acacia wood, and I wanted to just darken it up a little bit and also give it a little bit of a finishing touch. So I'm taking a little bit of this liquid antiquing wax. I'm going to add a little bit of water, probably about half and half, kind of, or 1-to-1 ratio, if you want to call it that. I'm going to just stir it up, and then I'm going to apply it all over the board, the beads, but I'm going to leave the feet their lighter color because I really love the natural look of those feet. This wood was really thirsty since I had sanded it down, so it really took this stain well, and I didn't have to wipe off any of the excess. It just dried beautifully. As I said earlier, I am doing the beads as well, and I'm going to kind of just push my brush into the inside of the board as well, the bottom board, so it looks like the whole piece is completely stained. Once it was dry, I took some white chalk paint and very lightly distressed it, giving it more of a whitewashed look. I'm sorry I don't have that footage. I don't think I turned my camera on when I was doing it. But here's how it turned out. Let me know what you think.
I'd like to thank xTool for sponsoring this portion of the video. They are having their 4th anniversary carnival sale, is what they call it. And they have a whole bunch of stuff that's up to 60% off. So if you're into small business or just DIY and you wanted to get into some engraving and wood cutting and all sorts of other crafting things, you might want to look into getting one of their multi-purpose machines. This is the M1 Ultra in action. I'm using the scoring feature to create an outlined pumpkin set on this pre-painted piece of wood. I think that's really neat that you can paint a piece of wood and then it will just engrave over top of it, bringing the wood burning as you're outlining. So I really like the scoring feature. Look at all the details that you can get with this. Next, I've got it doing some engraving of letters. And when you're doing multiple uses, so for example, I'm doing some engraving and then I'm going to have some scoring done on top. On this piece of wood, I've got it doing some engraving of some letters. It's also going to engrave a pumpkin, and then I'm going to put some scoring on top of it. So the engraving portion of it can be as light or as dark as you want. This is also a painted piece of wood. There's the pumpkin. Look at how pretty it looks. It's already like kind of weathered because I didn't go too dark. So it has a little bit of the wood grain showing and a little bit of the paint. It's really, really gorgeous. One of the new functions that this machine can do is inkjet printing, and that's what it's doing right here. This is a completely different cartridge. These metal boxes that you see moving along the track are replaceable. So I have wood burning, I have engraving, I have scoring, then I have wood cutouts, then I have blade cutting with vinyl and with paper. I can also do inkjet printing on wood, which is what you just saw, and also on paper, and then cut those out. So it's a fully functional 4-in-1 craft machine. And this is just the most fun I've had in a really, really long time. xTool is really upping their game with all of these newer machines and things that they have for crafting. There's a heat press machine, there's a screen printer. So make sure you head on over to their website. There is a craft machine waiting for you there within your budget, and I know you will just love it as much as I do. Let's take a look at some of the projects that I created for this video. This is a little pumpkin that was printed with the inkjet printer. So sweet. I took a bamboo cutting board from the dollar store and turned it into an engraved board for decor. This is the Hey There pumpkin with the engraving and the scoring. Then I cut out this pumpkin and gave it a mandala scored effect. And then there's these cute little walnut pumpkins. And here is the engraved on the white distressed plank. These are amazing pieces, and I had so much fun creating them today.
My last project is using this vintage washboard. It is a Busy Bee number 16, and it is worth money when they're in really good condition. I did some research ahead of time, so I do not feel bad doing a project with this because I would probably only get $10 to $15 for it, and I only spent $5 on it. I'm going to go ahead and add some wood glue to all of the areas that need fixing and then set it aside to dry. The first idea I had for this was to paint the outside portion of everything white. So what I'm doing here is just applying a couple of coats, or actually one really good coat of Mod Podge. I wanted to try this to see if it would be a good sealer to keep the yellow out. Well, I never found out because after the Mod Podge had dried and when I put it on all of the wood, it was so rich and deep brown and gorgeous that I just couldn't cover it up. While I was waiting for the Mod Podge to dry, I decided to work on a little accessory piece for the washboard. I had this old sign from the Dollar Tree. I cut it into a tag shape, and now I'm just using a glue stick, and I'm going to add some really pretty yellow and green plaid paper to this tag. I cut off the excess and then used the brayer just to make sure it had a really good seal to the board. Then I'm just going to take my sandpaper and sand off all of the excess. Look at how gorgeous this wood turned out. It's absolutely beautiful, and it even brightened up the vintage Busy Bee that was stamped on there. So instead of painting the wood white, I'm going to paint the washboard white. I did give it a couple of coats of Mod Podge just to see if that would help seal out any of the rust, and it did work fairly well because this was completely rusty. The only thing that came through was a few little dots of rust, and that didn't bother me at all. I'm just using chalk paint. I'm going to give this 2 coats. I forgot to film this part, but I did stamp a beautiful design with a little bee on the tag, and then I drilled a hole in it. Now I'm using 2 sizes of beads to make a little bee, and I'm going to just glue them together right on the twine because that's just going to make it easier for me to hang onto them while I paint them. Before I do that though, I'm just using this silicone scraper as a base for some little hot glue wings that I'm going to give my bees. So I'm just sort of doing a teardrop shape with my hot glue gun, and then I'm going to set these aside and let them dry. I'll paint the whole body and the head of the bee with the black. And once I'm done with that and it has had a chance to dry, I'm going to take a much smaller brush and just give the body of the bee a couple of yellow stripes. To give these bees a little bit more character, I grabbed another 6 of the smaller beads and I'm just going to stain them with this little stain mixture that I have in this little bottle. I'm just going to take them out with tweezers and then just set them aside to dry. I'm taking a longer piece of thicker twine and I folded it in half. Then I take the loop and I pull it through the front of the sign and then pull the other 2 strands in as you see me doing here. I'm not sure if I explained that properly, but that's how I like to pull things through a circle. What I'm going to do now is just take the twine and tie it as snugly as I can around the washboard. I don't want to add any hot glue or anything because whoever gets this or purchases this might not want to have this particular design on it. If you like some of my home decor items in this video or any other video, check out my Etsy shop. I always list everything for sale, mostly smaller items because shipping can be quite expensive nowadays. I tied off the twine underneath the bees. It kind of looks like they have a little stinger there now. It's kind of cute. And now I'm going to add 3 of the beads on each of the strands of twine. Then I'll knot these 2 together and hang them at different lengths on top of the wood sign. Once my little bees are glued on, I'm going to glue them in the direction that I want the twine to be. This is just a really fun way of making sure that it doesn't cover up any of your design underneath and just adds a sweet little accent. At this point, I almost forgot about the little wings. I'm just using my Cricut spatula to pull these very gently off of the silicone scraper, and they do come off quite easily. Then I'll use a tiny little dab of hot glue and place them onto the back of the bees. I got this idea using the hot glue on a silicone pad from another creator. I don't remember who it was, but thank you so much because it's a really fun idea. To finish off the tag, I'm going to add this simple shoestring bow with this sort of burlap colored ribbon, although it's not burlap, it's a really soft ribbon. And I'm going to glue that down. Then I'll add some greenery and a few little flowers, and I'm all set. This turned out so beautiful. I really love it. I found these cute little bookends at the thrift store, and I believe I paid $6 for the pair. I'm going to take off the picket fence because I've got a different idea for these, but I will be using the picket fence later on. I just used a hammer to knock them off, and now I'm just going to clean up the edges with my scraper and a little bit of sandpaper before I start painting. These are going to get 2 to 3 coats of white chalk paint, and I just want them to be fully covered. I don't want any of the green to be poking through. I thought these were really cute because once you see this view here, they actually look like books. I found these corbels at the thrift store as well, and they were $1.99 each, still in the original packaging. I just misted the wood down a little bit with some water because I want to dilute the antiquing wax that I'm using. I want to bring out some of the wood grain, but I don't want a really dark color. I'm going to do this all over the wood except for the bottom portion and the back, the two places where I'm going to need to attach it back to the other part of the bookends. I set everything aside to make sure they fully dry for a good hour or so. And now I'm using some Gorilla Glue Clear Grip and some hot glue, and I'm going to glue the wood right back onto the bookend part. I'm also going to use a clamp just to hold the bottom part in place until the Gorilla Glue has a chance to set up. If you're wondering what kind of contraption I'm wearing on my hand, this is just a dollar store gardening glove. And the reason I'm wearing it is because the psoriasis on my hand is getting really bad due to the cold weather. And it's just really red and irritated. And I didn't think you would want to see that. So I've got this cute flowery little glove instead. That's all I did with these bookends. And I think they turned out really beautiful. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I'm so glad you decided to click on my video. If you like what you see so far and you haven't already, I'd love it if you could hit that red button. In this project, I'm using 2 of the IOD stamps. I have ink. This is just dollar store ink and it works really well. What I'm doing is taking the stamps and I'm going to stamp them onto some tissue paper because I want to put them inside these 2 ramekins that you can see up at the top of the screen. These I have had in my stash for a really long time. I actually had them in my kitchen for the longest time. Then I decided I was going to give them away because I didn't use them. And then I thought, you know what? I think I can probably figure something out to make them look really pretty as decor. So this is how I'm starting out with these. I'm going to take this tissue paper and then simply Mod Podge it into the center of the ramekin. Now, you have all seen me use tissue paper prints. This is the same effect. I'm going to use Mod Podge inside of the ramekin and then put the tissue paper print right inside, being really careful not to brush the Mod Podge on top. I'm just going to be dabbing it. Okay, so let me explain what I'm doing here. I'm using my Mod Podge, but I'm not brushing over the stamp because that's going to make the ink run. So probably what I would have done ahead of time possibly is give it a little bit of spray with some sealer, but I wasn't sure how the tissue paper would take that. So I'm going to test that at some point and let you guys know. So what I'm doing is just dabbing up and down with my brush very lightly just to push out all of the bubbles and wrinkles. I'm going to add a little bit of decoration to these ramekins, and I'm going to just use my stain again the same way that I did the bookend pieces, spray it with a little bit of water, and then add some of the stain onto it just to give it a little bit of a lighter color. The other one is a bird cutout that I picked up at my local Dollarama store. I've had it in my stash for a while, and that's already that color, so I don't have to do anything with it. I'm going to wrap some of this Dollar Tree twine around a couple of times, but I tied it first in just a single knot and added a little bit of hot glue just to keep it in place. I'll wrap it around and tie it off and then trim off the ends. I'll add a little shoestring bow later. Then I'm going to be adding some of this lavender. I was so excited the other day. I was at my local Walmart, and of course, I live in Canada, so our Walmart craft and floral department is very different from what you have in the United States. Anyway, I found the lavender from the Walmart and it was $1.24. I was so excited. It's so pretty. I think I grabbed like 30 or 35 of them. I was a lavender piggy, but I don't care. I have it and I'm so excited because I've never ever seen it before. So I had to snatch it all up. I'm going to do something similar with the other ramekin, except this time I'm going to use this little dragonfly rubber stamp and stamp 2 of the images right onto the little wooden tag, and then I'll embellish with the lavender again. I glued on some sawtooth hangers so they could be hung, but they could also just be laid down on a table. I think they turned out beautiful. Let me know what you think.
I hope you enjoyed these rustic trash to treasure projects and got inspired to do some of them yourself. Don't forget to head down to my description box or the first pinned comment and check out what xTool has to offer. You will not be disappointed in these machines. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.